Namaste and welcome to episode 3 of RepARTee, a series of conversations that we are doing under the umbrella of SIFAS with artists both in India and in Singapore. This particular conversation is unique in that we are featuring a Singapore-groomed artist, Sushma Soma. It's also unique in that it is the first live conversation that we are doing. Sushma started learning music in Singapore from several gurus, and she did the bulk of her training in SIFAS. She did her Diploma in Carnatic music at SIFAS and got the title of Sangeeta Visharad many years ago. Since then, Sushma has been learning in Chennai as well as traveling the world, performing as a Carnatic musician, doing some excellent and eclectic work. Sushma will take us through her journey in music, in SIFAS and thereafter as well.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I never thought I would be interviewed for something like this, but I think it's really special that I get to talk here today, because I think it kind of also makes me reflect on my own musical journey. So thank you for having me here. My musical journey actually started when I was 4 with Bhagya Murthy teacher, and she lived in the same neighborhood as me, and so it was literally like I could walk over, and it was like a mini gurukulam almost, if I may say so, with her. And she would take me along to her temple performances, and like I would sing with her at the age of like 4 or 5. So that's really how it started. Then when I was 7, I came to SIFAS and I started learning from teachers there. And I had some of the best teachers, Shanta teacher, Leelavati Gopalakrishnan teacher, Padmavati Nagarajan teacher, and Padmalingam sir. So I learned from all of them in SIFAS, and as you mentioned, I graduated, and then after that I moved. I was kind of trying to see how I can get advanced training, and I actually came under the tutelage of Mrs Lalita Sivakumar, who is a legendary Mridangam player, Palgad Mani Iyer's daughter, D.K. Pattamal's daughter-in-law, and of course Nitishri Mahadevan's mom.
So how did you pick on Lalita Sivakumar? I mean, was it a planned kind of decision that you would go to her?
Actually, I think at that time I was looking to get advanced training from someone, and Nitishri Akka had come to for a concert to Singapore then, and like she had come with her family, and that's when I first met Lalita Mami. And when I sang under her, Mama was so sweet, like Nitya Akka's dad, and he said, why don't you come to India and actually just learn from Mami? And I was like, yeah, sure. Actually, it was just very serendipitous that it happened that time. So that's how I actually came under her tutelage. And I've been learning from her, and it's really been a wonderful journey, kind of getting all that advanced training from her.
You've been learning from her for very long now.
Yeah, I've been learning from her since 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's I would say 16 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
So why don't you talk to us about that journey of being a Singaporean, living in Singapore, and then going to Chennai and learning from a Chennai-based guru, and then starting to perform. How has that been?
Wow. The first thing I want to say is that I think it's moving from Singapore to India is not an easy step, really, because I think, at least for me, when I was growing up, learning, I don't know if it's still the case, but learning is very, in some way, a very structural, institutionalized thing, where like I go to class for 2 hours per week, I come back, and the rest of the learning is myself. And moving to India was very different, because I went to her during a period when I started learning under her during a period when I had 6 months off between my 12th and my university. And so during that time, I would just go every day. I would go in the morning, and I would go in the morning, and I would only come back in the evening. And it would be like I would just sit there, have lunch, nap, and then evening class. And it was just so different from what I was used to.
It was like a true gurukula.
Yeah, it was kind of like a gurukula almost, and she really took me in like I was her family, and like almost to the point like she'd be like, what do you like, let me cook it for you, and what do you feel like learning today, and and I also got acquainted with her other students, and so we would kind of talk about music together. So it was a very different kind of environment that I was exposed to there, and it made me realize that there was just so much more to music the way I had been exposed. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Our conversation today is special in another way. We have two alumni of SIFAS here to have this conversation with Sushma as well. One is Nishant Tyagarajan, a SIFAS trained Carnatic musician, and the other is RepARTee Ravichandran, who is SIFAS trained as well. RepARTee learns Carnatic music. She learns to play the veena as well as Bharatanatyam. Both of them are upcoming musicians as well, and they would really be interested in Sushma's journey through music. So I'll hand it over to Nishant and RepARTee to carry on this conversation with Sushma. Nishant, RepARTee.
Hi. It's such a privilege to be here and be part of this conversation as well. Sushma, I've known you for a very long time now, and always been a fan of your music as well. Being, I would say, somewhat in the similar journey, but of course, you have been always a few steps ahead and a few stages in music ahead as well. So I'm very curious to know how this journey has been for you. Practically speaking, you also, just like all of us, you went through schooling in Singapore, and you even did your undergrad here as well, I understand?
That's right,
yeah. So at which point was there a switch in your mentality such that you decided, okay, I can actually drop all of this and take up music as a full-time career?
I would actually attribute that to Lalita Mami. I'm so grateful to her for that. And like I explained before, the fact that she took me in like that, I think I was exposed to a completely new world and a new approach to how I could see music, where it could actually become a way of life. It wasn't just something I would turn to like a couple of hours a week, or that I would just listen on my own accord while I'm driving. It wasn't just something that I just did like, sporadically, but it was something that would just be, I wake up, that's all I do, I come back and that's all I do. And I think when I was exposed to that, and when I saw how there were so many others who were actually doing that seriously, I think it made me realize, hey, I want to do that too. I want to be part of this life, and I want to explore more. I want to know more. And I think that's kind of what gave the push, really. And so, but at that time, I still came back to Singapore to do my undergrad, because I guess that's how we Indians are, I guess, like
you have to get your college degree.
Yeah, my college degree, exactly, yeah. So, it was like, get your college degree, and don't, whatever it is, you have a backup option and things like that. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it. And I even went on to work in PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers, after. And to be honest, I loved it there. I loved my colleagues, I loved my boss, but I would go into work and kind of just keep humming all day. And I realized that this was just not where I wanted to be. I was not doing what I wanted to do, and this just didn't feel right. And so after working there for half a year, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm making the move. I'm going to move to India. So that's really how it happened.
For someone like me, I feel like I'm at the stage of life where if I were to take this more seriously, it would have to be now. Otherwise, I'm losing out on my prime years of sorts. So what is your opinion on the take of prime years, per se? And how do you think someone who is at the precipice of so many things, like I'm about to finish my undergrad, and I'm going to finish my 8th year at SIFAS, so I'm right at the cusp of more advanced training. So how do you think someone like me should decide on, what are the factors that we have to consider in order to take music full-time or take it more seriously than I am right now?
I think when it comes to taking art full-time, I just want to put it out there that I'm incredibly grateful to my parents and my husband and the family that I have, because it's never been a case any time where, like, what are you doing, not, being the breadwinner of the home, or like bringing back. And like, if anything, they've always been supportive to, like, don't worry about us, you go and do what you have to do. And I understand that, like, that's not something everyone can take for granted. So I really thank my lucky stars, and I'm very grateful that I've been able to pursue that. So on the outset, as unfortunate as it is, I think given how stressful it is and how everyone's trying to make their ends meet, it is unfortunate that is one of the things that needs to be covered. And so once that is, and you have that clear, I think the second thing that I want to say is that you just need to, whoever wants to pursue it seriously just needs to love it. And I think that's not true just for music. Like when I was talking to Nishant earlier about his medical profession, and the kind of grueling hours that you put in, you can only do that because you love it so much and you want to be consumed by that. And I think that is so important. And it's not just about, I want to get on stage, I want to perform, but it's really about how can I learn? Like how can I watch things? What can I pick up from that? Who can I speak to? And what can I get from that conversation? What can I listen to grow? Like everything that surrounds me has to make me grow and make me want to grow. And I think that kind of drive and that kind of obsession has to be there. And I think that can be there. I mean, it can be there while pursuing your whatever education, bachelor's, master's as well, because it's just, like instead of listening to some pop music or whatever, we make that conscious choice to be like, today I'm going to listen to a Shemmangudi instead. And, it's just small things that you do along the way to kind of aid the eventual goal in life that you have. And truth be told, yeah, I mean, if you do want to really look at, pursuing music seriously, the earlier the better. I don't know if there's ever a right time. There are people who reach their peak, after 50s. There's some who reach at the age of 9. And so I don't think there's ever a right time to say it. Like I didn't feel this way 10 years ago. It was different. And, today I feel, and I think I would grow differently 10 years later. And so I don't think there's a right time in terms of that, but the earlier the better, because what are we waiting for? If you're consumed by it, you're consumed by it. Just go ahead and do it. Like that's how I feel.
The other thing that I've always wondered is so I'm also at the stage where I have been performing for a few years now, and even in Chennai I've been performing during the season. But at the same time, even despite a few years of performing, you do feel that there is a bit of a difference being someone from Singapore.
Yeah.
You don't really always blend in with the musicians from Chennai, and even people. I mean, there are many reasons for this, I'm sure, including the fact that these people from Chennai are there every day performing, every day listening. They know each other well. But how was it for you, for someone going from Singapore, which you're probably one of the first people to have actually successfully blended in with the crowd in Chennai and become someone who actually is also very well known there, aside from being from Singapore. So how was that transition for you, and how did that happen?
It was definitely tough. I think that's like you rightly pointed out, like people have grown up together there, right? And I think we can say that even in SIFAS. Like I grew up with my batchmates here, and we had a community here. And I'm sure if all of us had gone to India to pursue music together, then I would have had my circle as well, right? So it's true. It is difficult, but I think the difficulty also comes not just from the people there. It's also from organizers and all that. And I think part of it comes because they don't know if you're pursuing this seriously. Like people come in, okay, na summa oru varshathukku pannittu poren. Let me just do it for a year or so and go back, right? So when they compare it to those who've just been there and been doing it all along, I think they don't know if you're serious. And so immediately there's like a gap there, because they're not sure if they want to invest in you. But I think once you kind of show that, hey, I'm here to stay, and if you're persistent, kind of just being like, no, I'm here to stay, I want to practice, I want to grow, I want to perform. And I think once you keep at it, people start seeing that you're serious about it, you're serious about growing, you're serious about performing, and then they start roping you in for things because they're willing to invest in you. And that's the same for organizers or colleagues alike, I would say.
I just wanted to ask you about, how it's been performing in Chennai as a person from Singapore. They have this, sort of Chennai clique, so to speak. And you were a performer from outside, but you've been performing there for many years during the season and otherwise as well. So do you feel you're one of them, or do you still feel like an outsider? Would you like to share this with us? Yeah.
That's a difficult one, because I could say I'm one of them, but they could very well say no. But I do strongly believe I am one of them. I think some of my closest friends today are people in the fraternity, performing doing wonderful work out there, and they inspire me musically so much. Some of them are my collaborators. And so I definitely, and also I know that if I want to bounce off some musical idea, or if I want to learn something from them, they're just always there. So I definitely think, I mean, after all these years, I'm definitely one of them. And it's been nice. I think, you know, wherever you go, you want to feel like you're a part of something. You want to feel like you belong. And I think it's nice to feel like I do there. Yeah.
So that's actually a remarkable thing. I'm the only person who's not a musician amongst the four of us, but I attended a workshop conducted by Sushma many years ago during Navratri. We have another Navratri coming up, though a very different Navratri, I would say. And I still remember the workshop that Sushma conducted, which had people of all ages and all genres. What I mean is all different capabilities. I mean, there was me, and there were some trained musicians as well. And she taught us some beautiful Navratri kritis, and I remember she even taught us one of these Dikshitar's Notuswara Sahityams, which is usually taught to kids, and I really appreciated that much. I found that the easiest to sing. And Nishant, who is our alumnus as well, he has sung for the Spirit of Youth Festival, and being a Singaporean who went and sang at the prestigious Music Academy Spirit of Youth Festival, he actually won that festival. So we are going to have a little bit of music coming from Sushant, Sushma, and Aarti as well. Over to Nishant and Aarti now.
Actually, thank you for bringing up the Music Academy. I'm very interested to know, can you talk us through the very first time you performed on the big stage at Music Academy?
Oh God.
How was the whole process, from like when it was, how did you decide the lineup of the songs, and how was it on stage for you?
I think the very first time I performed there on the big stage, I was so nervous. I remember sitting there, and the worst thing, and I think a lot of people who've performed there would agree, they do this bell thing there. So, you know, if your concert's at 11:30, at 11:28 they'll ring the first bell, and you're like, that is the bell of my death. You know, like it feels like that moment. And then 11:30 is the next bell, and then they open out the curtains. And then you're looking at everyone and you're like, oh my God, my soul is slowly dying. Like, that's how it really felt the first time. It was so nerve-wracking. And I remember, like, after the concert was over, I really felt like, oh my God, like, that was just something. It felt like the biggest thing I've done in my life or something. And I think that's also because everyone speaks, like, kind of just hypes it up, right? And like people around you, everyone is just like, oh, we have to go to that concert, that, you know, and everything. And I do that too. Like, I want to hear like all the artists there. The sound is great, the ambience is great, everything is great, and I want to hear them there. So I imagine if I've also added on to the pressure that other artists feel too. And so, you know, I kind of felt that as well. But I must say, I mean, over the years though, it's definitely gotten better. And in fact, I think last year when I sang there, I had so much fun actually on stage. Like, I remember when I heard the bell, I was like, Sush, you got this. And then when it opened up, I was so excited to sing. And I really think that also came with me just kind of falling in love with my form even more. So much that like it wasn't about me performing on the Music Academy stage anymore. It was like my chance to be like, okay, I'm singing in Ananda Bhairavi today. I'm so excited to sing that Ananda Bhairavi. And I think once that kind of took over, it really just felt like for me, it was such an experience to sing. I don't know about the listeners, but it was, I was just so excited.
So you have to sing something that you sang at that Music Academy concert. Give us a little glimpse of that today.
The first one you mean, where like I partly died? Well, okay, I think one of the ones which I really enjoyed singing was a Viritam. I think this was in 2017.
I love your Viritams, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I particularly love your Viritams.
Thank you. Yeah, so it was a Viritam that I sang, and I had so much fun singing it because of, like, the one thing I love about Viritams is the ragam transitions. So, and you know, it also, I feel like it also tests my knowledge of how much I understand the ragam to switch from one ragam to another. And so because of that, I really love singing a Viritam, and I had sung one, I think, in 2017. So let me try that now.
Yeah.
என் தாயும் என் தாயும் எனக்கருள் தந்தையும் நீ என் தாயும் என் தாயும் எனக்கருள் தந்தையும் நீ சில்தா குலமானவை தீர்த்து சில்தா குலமானவை தீர்த்து என்னையாள் கந்தா 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 சிந்தா குலமானவை தீர்த்து என்னையாள் கந்தா குமரா கதிர்வேலவனே கந்தா மறைநாயகனே முருகா 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 என் தாயும் எனக்கருள் தந்தையும் நீ என் தாயும் எனக்கருள் தந்தையும் நீ சிந்தா குலமானவை தீர்த்து என்னையாள் கந்தா கதிர்வேலவனே கந்தா குமரா மறைநாயகனே முருகா 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 முருகா. I actually remember this was kind of the transition that I did. That
Amazing,
so,
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the three ragas, you know, Kapi, Behag and Sindhu Bhairavi.
Yeah.
So nice.
Thank you.
I can't believe this was the recent year, or this was 2017 you said?
This was 2017.
Was this the year you sang Balagopala?
No, Balagopala was in fact my first year, 2015.
Oh, I was there for that one then.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
was there for your first concert. Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
You didn't look jittery at all, even though you say that.
I was.
I mean, I'm sure you sucked it all in and just kept going anyway.
No, that's how well she's internalized this whole process. So.
Yeah, wow. Nice.
How was it for you, if I may ask?
Yeah, I mean, no. So I have not sung on the main stage yet.
But Spirit of Youth and
Yeah.
winning that, I mean, come on, like the
Yeah.
first SIFAS person to do that, it's great.
Yeah, I mean, so that was a real, it was really a big honor for me. So this was when I was in second year of med school. So it was like kind of the year when you do a lot of med school in the first 2 years is based on textbook learning. So and watching lectures not necessarily in person. You can just cast them from home. Now that I can say it because I passed out of school anyway. So a lot of time was spent at home, just browsing books and looking at videos. And I just needed some inspiration in life as well. So that's when I focused a lot more on music. Ironically, even though there's so much work to be done. Yeah. So then that's when someone my guru, Sri Delhi Muthukumar, who also resides in Chennai, he told me to just apply, give it a shot. And because they do take international applicants, but not always do you get a chance to perform in the final competition itself. And winning it is also quite a rarity for someone from outside. So I just gave it a shot, and I was surprised that it worked out that I would go there. And when I actually went there, yeah, like I guess the experience is the same. Music Academy is very strict on timing, so they said it was. I remember it was like 1 hour, 15-minute concert only. And they said even if you are 2 seconds exceeding the shutters will just come down on you singing.
I know. That has actually happened before, by the way. Like, they've actually kind of closed and the person's like finishing off the last line. It's happened before. Yeah.
I know.
I know how it is for dance. I don't know how it is for music. Do you have to sing an Ambujam Krishna composition in music as
definitely.
well?
Yeah.
So why don't you sing a little bit of that and show us? Because that is your prize-winning concert.
Sure. I must confess, as you can see, I'm in the army now, so so I've not been able to practice much in the last couple of months. So, but I'll still give it a shot anyway. Na na la 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 re da da ra la 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 ra da re la 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 re la tadari na 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 Mariyemi kavalanu maragadavarnuni kripagalligide Mariyemi kavalanu maragadavarnuni kripagalligide Mariyemi kavalanu maragadavarnuni kripagalligide Mariyemi kavalanu maragadavarnuni kripagalligide Mariyemi kavalanu re just a taster of the song.
It's Kannada Ragam.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I specifically learned it just for that. I don't think I'd heard that song before.
No, not at all. I've not heard it before. Yeah.
It's not a very common piece, but like exactly as you said, you need to sing Ambujam Krishna song. So I learned that a month before the concert. But yeah, leading up to that concert was basically, it was as much as, you know, the challenge usually is coming up with creativity on the spot and choosing the right, knowing what to sing at the right time. It is a very different experience singing for a music academy program because it's kind of you already have something planned and you just have to execute it properly.
I feel you.
Yeah, so that involves a lot of time trials.
Yeah.
Every time you exceed 1 hour 15-minute mark, you slap yourself and tell yourself, no, the curtains will be closed by now. So then you cut your alafana accordingly and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I spent a good few weeks in Chennai before the Music Academy competition itself. And those were a few grueling weeks. It was also like the same concept, Gurukulavas. I was at my guru's house the entire day. He just basically gave me a room and said, you just keep singing, I'll come pop in once in a while. And so then the problem is that once in a while you never know when it is, so you still have to sing properly. You can't just be humming something at your own time, so he's looking or listening. So anyway, those few weeks really also changed my perspective on music and how it is to even consider something full-time. It's really grueling. So, but yeah, when eventually I performed and it came out well, and somehow with God's grace and Guru's grace and everyone's wishes, I somehow won the Spirit of Youth. It was a huge moment for me. I think it was also when there was a switch that turned on that really made me consider that music. I mean, I would say at this, even now, I don't currently consider music as a primary, like something I would consider as a profession right now, also because as someone who went through med school and who's as a junior doctor, I have a long journey ahead of me in that way. But as a serious hobby, not just a just a joke kind of thing. Yeah, it's really a serious hobby. It requires a lot of commitment, and that's when I realized if I'm doing something like music, I better do it properly.
Yeah, definitely.
There's no point doing such a thing.
Yeah, because there's so much to know and there's so much to experience.
These shining examples like Dr. Al Subramaniam, who's a medical doctor as well,
Yes.
and who's creating such beautiful music even to
Yes.
this day.
Yes.
So you're not short on inspiration, I would say.
In fact, the first one I always go back to in terms of the example of someone who was a doctor and then who went on to establish such a great presence in music was the legendary Sri Pinakapani, who was a medical doctor himself and then left such a legacy behind.
Right, of course, yes.
Yeah, so he's like the OG in the I think there have been examples of people who have done extremely well in two careers, so that gives me hope. And so along the way, I'm sure I will also get more time to focus on music again once I'm out of this phase of life.
I have a question from that. So, would you think there is a difference between someone who engages in music in a performance way or like an intellectual way without the pressure of performance? And do you think there is like a different focus you're supposed to have if you want to be a performing artist and a completely different approach to music if you just want to engage with it intellectually?
You know, I
I don't know whether intellectual is the question. The term that you would use for music. I think it's more you do it with just.
I would call it intellectual in a way as well because you are dealing with this methodology and you're dealing with all of these. Yeah. So I would call it intellectual because you're dealing with it in a way that actively like engages your intellect and you have to apply yourself there. So for me, in a way, it is intellectual. And I also have a question like part B of the question.
yeah, of course. I think the first, I agree with you actually about intellectualizing music, and I think that's not something I was aware of growing up and for a very huge part of my life. And I would say it's perhaps something that's just come in recent years. And I actually want to make special mention to T.M. Krishna's book, A Southern Story, Carnatic Story, Southern Music, a Southern Music Carnatic Story.
I have that here.
Yeah.
I was actually recently part of the T.M. Krishna masterclass, the 2-week masterclass.
Nice.
So we had a lot of conversations about.
Yeah, I can imagine. Oh my God, like it must have been so engaging.
Every day, like 3 hours of just. Like it wasn't so much like all of us went into that masterclass with an expectation of learning kritis or just like learning repertoire, but then we got something else completely out of it. It was all of the important and absolutely necessary conversations that we need to have in our current times, that I feel like he sort of like lit a spark, and for us to have these conversations, because I honestly, like personally, I feel like there is a sore lack of these conversations in our current times, because I don't know if it's because we are so focused on the performance aspect of music that we don't stop to ask these important questions. So what is your take on that? Yeah.
Thanks for bringing that up. I think, like I mentioned just before, like I think this is something which I've thought about more recently, and of course I would definitely give credit to the book, and I would give credit to my mentors who really made me look at music very, very differently. And I think when you ask, like, do we approach music differently, if we looked at it from an intellectual perspective or performance perspective, I think it's a yes and no. I don't know the full answer yet. I'll concede. I don't want to give an absolute answer because that's something I'm discovering myself. But I think what happens is, what I've realized is I know more about music. And I don't mean just about like me learning songs or whatever, but even going back and back and back to what a swaram really means, or how a swaram is not just a note, but it's a living entity, it's a breathing entity. It has movement, it has all these things. And when I start looking at even the very fundamental thing differently, I think it changes my practice. It has changed my practice. And because it's changed my practice, I think it's changed my performance. And so I think it's a process. I think it's a process that we work on. We need to have a systematic process that we work on. And I think that kind of reaps the results. And in this case, the result is the performance. I don't know if that answers your question. But so what I mean to say is, by the end of the day, there are certain things that are required of a performance. I could be discovering these things. I could be on this path of self-discovery and say that, look, today I'm so taken in by this particular approach to music and this is all I want to do. But I feel like, as an audience member, even as me as a listener, I go into a concert having certain expectations because I'm trying to perhaps get away from the everyday mundaneness of life or my problems or whatever it is. And so I go to a concert and there are certain things, because I've been preconditioned to expect, I do expect it. And I want to listen to it and I can't rationalize it, but I want to listen to it. And I think that's it's the same of like, even if I went to a rock concert, right? Like that artist might be on some sort of like path to whatever kind of discovery. But if I don't get that like heart thumping, whatever movement, I'm like, wait, this is not a rock concert. What am I at? So I think as an artist, you also have to think about the performance aspect of it. But I think it truly becomes a very magical experience for both the listener and the artist when that intellectual process is aligned with how you're able to give it in the performance. And I think that's something I'm trying to discover. I'm trying to discover what my voice truly is with that. And so I can't give you an absolute answer because of that, because I'm on that path myself.
Sorry, I just wanted to, okay. Part B. Yeah, part C more like. Yeah. But would you say that your freedom is being curbed in the performance space then? Because you have to, I mean, even though you are on this path to self-discovery, as you say, you still have to stick to the structure and sort of the stereotypes you have to, like...
I don't know that though, because I think within that structure itself, there's so much that you can actually discover because of the fact that, sure, you know, because of my audience's expectation that I need a sub-main or a main. So my sub-main has to be 17 minutes or my main has to be 30 minutes. Okay, all those structures are there. But there's so much fun that I can have within that 17 minutes. Like within that 4 minutes of ragam, today I might sing it a different way and tomorrow I might sing it another way. And me challenging myself as to, look, you have only 4 minutes. How are you going to, and you sang it this way today. How can I approach it differently tomorrow? Today I started with a Gandharam. Tomorrow can I start the ragam at a male Shadjam? And I think there's so much freedom in kind of actually those structures and boundaries itself that I today, because of where I am, I feel like I'm so excited to discover that itself. Like, I feel like I'm not at a stage where, I'm personally like at the stage of my career, I still feel like I need to get my fundamentals right and I need to get my, that pakka kacheri right or whatever. So, but I also understand how that limits me because sometimes it doesn't play to my strength. Like starting with a varnam, unfortunately doesn't play to my strength because actually singing a varnam needs a kind of gettu and like a kind of gait, that I don't bring in the start itself. But I know I need to do that, because of whatever expectations. But I kind of try to think of it differently. Okay, I'm starting this way, but how else can I tweak the rest of the concert to play to my strengths? Or how else can I tweak it to bring my creativity out? So I think within that form itself is a lot of freedom, actually. Yeah.
And to add to that point, I think I completely agree with you in the sense that actually there are so many challenges that things that you find irritating actually pose. For instance, for someone like a junior performer, it's very different having a 2-hour concert versus having a 1-hour concert versus having a half an hour slot. But at the same time, let's say you want to sing Todi, you're supposed to be able to perform a 45-minute Todi, 20-minute Todi, and even a 10-minute Todi.
Yeah.
And people have done it. People like the great GNB have sung 2-minute Alapnes for Todi, which are completely different from his 1-hour RTP for Todi. And I mean, I think there's a lot of inspiration there and a lot of challenge in this process as well. Like, I think it is actually harder to sing a 2-minute Todi than a 45-minute Todi.
It's so hard because you really want to bring the essence of the ragam, its spark, magic. Like, you want to leave people hanging for, ayo, can I hear more, right? Like, and that is where, like, the magic lies. And I think that's what I meant by there's actually so much freedom in that, like, kind of trying to get that right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I think at this point, for someone like us or myself, specifically a junior performer, the structure is still something that we have not overcome. It's still something for us to achieve and achieve a lot of success at before I think I would even consider changing that kind of a thing for myself. Yeah.
And also I think the understanding of freedom comes a lot more, I realize for myself, as I actually gain more understanding of my structure. Because as I know that I can work within these structures, like in the structured way, then I know how I can actually move around that, maneuver that, kind of, and get out of that. If I don't even have an understanding of my structure, then what am I actually getting freedom from, right? Like, what am I actually exploring? So I think that's important to understand.
Yeah, and also the other thing I think which I've come to realize with a bit of maturity in music over the years is that performance doesn't always entail showing everything you know.
Yes, absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you have your thoughts on this, and I would love to hear that. But I think a lot of yesteryear artists, including Semagudi, Srinivas Iyer sir, Lalgudi Jairam, and all these people have they've unlimited knowledge. They've just oceans of knowledge and oceans of performance history and ability to do anything they want. Yet every time they sing, there's always a semblance of simplicity to what they're doing. And a thing which has to be performed in 5 minutes, even if they could elaborate it for 15 minutes, they will perform it in 5 minutes without unnecessary alapana, unnecessary swara. So there is a restraint, there is a power of restraint in music itself, and I think that's something we develop over time.
Yeah.
Like myself, I used to just sing a quick alapana for everything I felt like singing, but honestly, after a while, listening to myself, which is also very painful.
Yeah, oh my god, yes. So painful.
Yeah, and realizing that actually sometimes the silence or not doing that thing was actually better than doing that thing. So what do you think about this?
I absolutely agree. Firstly, that listening to myself is a very painful process. Yeah. But I mean, it's also so essential, right? Because the truth is how my voice sounds here is really not what the others or like what I'm listening back to. Like even the tonal texture itself is so different. And secondly, I might actually be thinking, wait, I'm doing this gamakam right. Like I am trying my best in singing it. But then my mentor will be like, "Yo, oringa paadi, sing it properly." I'm like, I am singing it properly. And then you go back to your recording and then you realize, oh my God, all this while I was singing something that was completely different. So it's so important, I think. Like, I think previously I would not listen to myself just because I was really, it just felt so cringeworthy. But now I've actually come to understand the importance of, I think it's true for any artist, even Bharatanatyam, to be able to just sit there and watch yourself. Because if you can't do it, then you can't expect the others to do it. It's, second thing about restraint, I really think that's true. And again, that's something I've also just only come to appreciate in recent years, actually. Because it's so true that we want to give everything, we want to complicate everything. But I guess also, as my taste has matured or refined, however we want to look at it, like simplicity just feels so beautiful and just so worthy of pursuit. And when that happens, you realize that you just want to leave all the frills and you don't want to keep like tinichifying. I don't know what the exact English is. Some words are just so well said in Tamil. Stuffing, but it's like tinichifying is really the word, right? You don't want to do that, and I think that's again something which I've come to realize recently, and so much so that now even my listening, like, and all that, like, I prefer to hear simpler music. Like when I hear Ramnath Krishnan's alapana, like even the way he leaves the end of the note, it's not complicated, it's so simple, but it's actually so hard to practice and sing because we've been so ingrained to just complicate things, So I definitely agree with you on that, and I really wonder, I wish like I had gotten all this like previously, but I also wonder whether it's also part of your learning process, that you need to go through all of this to actually arrive at this point where you're like, okay, this is where I want to be today.
That's your journey.
Yeah.
There's a beautiful saying in English, right? It says, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Oh, yeah. That is so true, yeah. So I agree with you completely.
I'm gonna switch things around to, it's been a very deep conversation so far. Maybe let's make it a bit lighter.
To talk about the elephant in the room. What is this?
Which is
the
the
current situation.
Yeah, of course. The fact that we are actually, we're able to meet itself is a great thing right now.
Without the masks,
Yeah, I know. So,
lucky to be in Singapore, I guess.
yeah.
But we're following all the rules.
Oh yes, for sure. Yeah, for of us. Anyway, so how has this year been for you? I mean, for someone who, frequently performs overseas and is so mobile, really must be a tough year for you. Tell us about how you've been.
It's been very difficult, especially this period feels incredibly difficult. Mainly because I was supposed to be on tour at this point, actually, in US and UK. And all of that has been cancelled. And that's why actually one of the organizers whom I was supposed to sing for Navatman in New York City, they asked me, like, do you want to do a home concert instead? So I just actually did that this morning. And I really missed live concerts. And there's so much magic that happens on stage that you just can't recreate at home. And I mean, at the same time, there's so much magic that happens at home as well that sometimes you can't recreate. Many times you can't recreate on stage. But, you know, I feel like, okay, now I've kind of had my solo time. Can I please start getting exchange already? You know, I feel that way. So apart from the fact that I feel a huge void, you know, having lost out on my tour and all those things, I think one of the most difficult things has been not being inspired by live performances. And I don't mean just my live performances, but watching. And because I would, you know, keep traveling back and forth India, and there's just so much learning that happens when you watch people, and also just kind of interacting with people there, going for classes, learning from my mentor. All those things have been kind of halted, right? So it's really been very difficult. And I think this is true for anyone that, you know, there's like lack of inspiration, lack of motivation. So you're constantly trying to search for things. Okay, let me watch interviews, let me read a book, let me, you know, listen to a concert from, you know, the yesteryears. I'm trying to do everything, but at the same time it hits you, it's hard. And it doesn't look like it's going to recover for a long time, because USA just introduced increase in their artist visa fee. UK never used to have artist visa. You know, I could actually go there as a Singaporean and perform, but now I need an artist fee. So all of this means that countries are actually looking to kind of only promote their homegrown artists, which is a great initiative, but I think that also kind of limits the growth for other people who want to get exposure by performing overseas, right? So it kind of, I would say art is definitely going to be, the art scene is going to be very, very heavily affected by this.
That's quite difficult to hear, but at the same time, I've seen a lot of people in Chennai actually do collaborative concerts online and perform. Even initially it was like solo, just at home, me and myself, but after a while it's even evolved into actually parallel people sitting at home and doing a live concert, which is amazing. But have you been part of any such online performances?
Actually, I've no online performances, not as yet. Okay. Because I mean, even in Singapore, I think we've not. I mean, I think with vocal performances, they still have a restriction. If I'm not wrong, you can't do that as yet. So I haven't been able to do that. But I've also not done the parallel thing as much as I wanted to. But I feel like now, if I do, people are going to be like, "Sush, we did this 6 months ago. Like, you're too late to this party." But I've been working on collaborations. I'm going to put out some work next month. I've just been kind of trying to put together the work so that I can put it out later. And this year, like earlier this year, I worked on a couple of pieces with some of my close friends, and we actually put that out as well. What I'm kind of working on now is just actually, like I said, I've been going back to my basics because I teach at NIE, National Institute of Education, and so a lot of, I think, this time has been used to really cement my knowledge of Carnatic music. Like, how can I talk about Carnatic music to someone who has absolutely no idea of it? How can I talk about Carnatic music to someone who has some sort of idea about it but doesn't know enough about it? And how can I talk about Carnatic music to someone who actually claims to know so much about it? And I think the way you approach it actually is so different with all three of them, because the way the questions engage you is also different. And I've realized with from teaching, I realized that it's a lot, like, it's very hard to teach someone who has no idea about any sort of music at all, and then trying to be like, this is what Carnatic music is. And it's very hard because their impression of Indian music is actually Bollywood or film music or something. So it's, and you know, you don't want to be like, okay, you know that song that you heard in that movie, it's actually classical based. Like, I don't want my reference of Carnatic music to be from film music. So it's really been testing my knowledge of what Carnatic music is. And the second thing, I teach a batch of students who are actually going to go on to become teachers in schools, music teachers in schools. So they already have like prior knowledge of Western classical music. But that also kind of poses a challenge for you, because you don't want to keep hinging Carnatic music on Western classical music, saying that, oh, you know, Sarigama Padanisa is just the solfege. It's just, you know, raga is the equivalent of a scale. You don't want to do that either. So then how do you then teach what a ragam is, what a swaram is? So I think the last 6 months, more than collaborations, I would say my interest has been in kind of cementing this so that I want to be able to talk about my form. I feel like that's something, even when I hear like a lot of people, they sing great, but when you ask questions or whatever, I don't know if I'm satisfied with the answers. And I don't want someone to come and be like, okay, she's doing this work, but does she even know her form? And as a teacher, I feel that responsibility. If I can't even teach my students that, if I can't convey what my form is about, then I'm failing my form, and I don't feel happy about that. Yeah.
Is that something you're doing for SIFAS? You're going to be doing something on music appreciation?
Oh my God, yeah. Actually, talking about that, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to be doing a webcast series with Miss Daisy Irani.
Okay.
Of, like for Singaporeans watching, she was actually like a sort of like I was such a huge fan of her growing up, because she used to do this sitcom called Under One Roof. And like growing up, when we didn't have cable and all that, like that was such a huge thing. So when she actually asked me to do this, I jumped on board, mainly because I was just such a fangirl. And then I was like, wait, so what is this project about again? Like, tell me. So anyway, then she said that, one of the problems that she faces is she loves Indian music, but she doesn't know how to really, what is Carnatic music and what does it entail? How do I be a Carnatic Rasika? And I think those are all like very valid questions that we ask, like which even I ask myself, like what really is a Carnatic Rasika? Because it's so subjective. Like someone likes a GNB, someone likes a Shemmangudi, no one likes the same people. But does that mean that one taste is superior? Is that Carnatic better? This, like I've been asking myself these questions. So when she asked me that, like I felt like this was very much in line with where I am in my musical journey today as well. And so I jumped on board. So for people watching this, you should actually kind of stay tuned for that as well, because we're going to be doing not just covering Carnatic music, but we're also going to be collaborating with practitioners of other Indian classical forms to talk about their form, because it's so interesting that India has so many classical forms. They're all based on Swaram, Raga, Tala, Shruti, but then each of them have like such different flavors. And so that's something I'm going to be working on with her.
Is it something more for an average Rasika who's not a musician? Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or even musicians, because I think we claim to know so much, but do we really? And also, I mean, I may know maybe 1% of Carnatic music, but I can't claim to know anything about abhangs or Rabindra Sangeet and stuff. And so I want to learn about those forms. And I'm glad SIFAS is getting into this and kind of, wanting to kind of explore other forms of music and seeing how we can bring all of them together.
There is one other thing that I've always wanted to ask you. You've traveled quite a bit, around the world, and you've done these series of performances with Gauri Ram Narayan.
Oh yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about how that experience has been. You've actually sung for music theatre and dance theatre.
Right. Performing with Gauri Akka has been one of like a milestone, I would say, in my musical journey, because Gauri Akka has a lot of different facets to her. She's an incredible musician. She's an incredible composer, and she has an eye for detail, a great playwright. So I think when I actually performed with her in her productions, it actually gave me insight into how we look at things. And I for example, even when you're sitting on stage, she would be like kind of like bottle anga vekkada, don't put your bottle there, take off the wrapper, can we color coordinate the bottle with your sari? And I know these things sound so simple, but it really creates for a visual aesthetic experience. Yeah, right. So I think those are things that I've started actually looking out for now, and I realize I enjoy that, like when I look at things and it's nicely put together. And even the way she would say, smile this way, that, and I think those are all things we take for granted, but it's really all those small moments that makes a performance as well. And apart from that, I think I learned a lot about like even the way she approaches ragam, the melody. I performed with Maithili Prakash and her for the production Yashodhara, and she composed the melodies for all of them, and they are beautiful, just exquisite. And so just being able to sing them, I feel like it made me discover a different tonal texture of my own voice, something which I hadn't discovered by singing Carnatic music. So it's been nice. And of course, traveling with her, touring, meeting different people, and kind of seeing how different audiences react to all the performances. And apart from Yashodhara, I also did a tribute show for MS Subbalakshmi and DK Pattamar. And I learned songs which I otherwise would not have learned, and she was very particular for the MS tribute show. We're not just going to do a Kurai Ondrum Illai or something that she's all like everyone knows. And so she actually made us dig out songs which MS Amma had sung a lot, but aren't as popular as her. Yeah. So it's kind of nice. It was like a very, very special experience that I had with her. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you, as a contemporary musician, I mean, people also know you as a kind of a globetrotter of sorts. How would you say your exposure to different cultures or your travels or like everything you've been exposed to apart from your native culture has impacted your art in any particular way?
Oh, that's a very tough question because on the outset, I want to say I don't know. I mean, mainly because I don't think I'm consciously thinking about it. Like, I'm not consciously thinking about whether, okay, I travel here, there, how can I bring that into my music?
I mean, would you say that someone who hasn't had the opportunity to have as much exposure as you, do you see yourself alongside them and see that, oh, maybe I know this because I've been exposed to this particular facet of...
That's also something I can't say for sure, I think, because when it comes to... you see, because I think Carnatic music, where it's concerned, knowing the form itself is so different. So I don't know if me having traveled to Iceland or Japan contributes to me knowing the form itself, or me having performed, with these, it kind of contributes to the form itself. I think all those things have perhaps maybe added to me being a better performer, like being aware of, how to overcome stage fear and all those things. But I don't know yet. Maybe it might come through at some point. But the reason I want to say I don't know is because I don't think I'm conscious of it. I don't know if I'm consciously thinking, okay, I'm going to assimilate all this information for this, and this is what it's going to feed. So I'm unable to answer your question that way. I'm sorry.
I mean, everything we've been talking about right now, art is obviously a very personal thing that we engage with, and it's different from each one of us. It's a very intimate thing that we engage in. So, but I personally feel like having a community of like-minded people really helps with the motivation.
Yeah,
do you?
for sure.
So how would you kind of explain the confluence of having a community to work with, to talk, to bounce your ideas off with, and going back home and internalizing all of that and sort of cementing it as your own ideology of whatever the art is for you?
So I'm sorry, what exactly is your question though? I mean, only because I feel like you actually summed it up. It's a statement. So
I'm just asking you how important a community is to you and how it has impacted your art in any way, and how do you think it would be different if you didn't have a community? Would you be as motivated, or do you think motivation comes only from work?
Okay. Oh no, I think a community is very, very important. I definitely have to make a shout out to two of my best friends, Maithili Prakash and Aditya Prakash, who've been huge inspiration, because I think they've provided that soundboard that you speak of. We watch things together, we talk about it, we dissect it, and not just them, like one of my really closest collaborators, closest friends, Praveen Sparsh, who's been a collaborator of mine for the last 10 years. One of the first few people I knew actually when I moved to India. And having those like-minded people has definitely kind of helped me in my musical journey, because it's, like you assimilate information as a particular way, you internalize it, but until you actually vocalize it, you don't know whether you've actually understood it. Am I making sense there?
It's
like
abstract until you actually
exactly. Like, you want to be able to say it, and for whatever reason, if you've also understood something wrongly, then kind of talking about it actually puts you back in place. And it also gives you different perspectives. The way I understood that Bhairavi Alapana is not the same way someone else has understood it, or it's not the same things he or she would have picked up from it. So I would have perhaps gotten like, oh my God, the overall feel or something like that. Then my friend would be like, but did you see that Soduka Sangati? Or did you see that? And I think all those discussions are very, very important. And I think being with like-minded people also fuels your practice, fuels your process. Like I said, Maithili, she's, from her, I've learned what discipline is. From her, I've learned what rigor is. When it comes to practice, there's just no way out. You need to put in your time. You need to put in, and it's very easy. Inspiration, it's very fluffy and easy to say, oh my God, life is about inspiration. But inspiration doesn't come every day. There are days that I wake up and I just don't want to sing, or I don't want to listen. But you just have to do it, because that's what that's what this journey is about. And there
I
are
think that's where the lines kind of blur between art being a free form and it being your career, because you still have to put in the hours and do your work as a career.
No, not at all. I think it's not because it's my career, but I think with anything that you love, I don't think there's ever going to come a point where you love something so much. And it's not because I don't want to sing or something like that. Sometimes physically I'm just so tired as well, and I just don't want to sing. Or like there are just some days that you just don't want to do something. Think about anything, not just music, anything that we love, that we say we truly love, or even having to spend time with our loved ones. We love them so much, but we fight. Or there are times when you want your solo time, your solo space, and that happens even with music. And so there are times when, you know, you say you just don't want to do it, but you just have to, because the truth is there are going to be performance days that you just don't want to do it. And if you've been copping out of practice every time you've not felt like doing it, then the performance will also actually be a cop-out. You don't know how to push yourself on a day that you actually really need to push yourself. So I think all these things are things which I would definitely attribute it to her, like seeing and actually touring with her as well, performing with her, watching that. And also from my mentor, who just kind of the musical approach, how the music is approached and everything. I think kind of being around that kind of environment has definitely fueled the practice. And like, so to kind of conclude and, you know, answer what you said, it is so important to be around like-minded people and to kind of surround yourself with people who inspire you. I think that's very, very important. Like-minded people is one thing, but also to kind of, apart from that, to be around people who inspire you, who show you what actually your ultimate goal could be, you know? I think those two things are very, very important. Yeah.
See, Aarti, what is interesting to note here is when Sushma spoke about this community, earlier on when you spoke about community, it would be the community around you, but her community is actually a global community in keeping with Tiffany.
Right.
So they're not even based in Singapore, all the three people that you spoke
that
about.
is true.
So it's a lovely global community that has come together. Music has brought them together.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
That's the wonderful thing, you know, that technology has actually enabled for us. Yeah.
Definitely.
So I think we should, we are reaching the end of the program, and we all have our different things to go back to, and it's been wonderful to have Nishant and Aarti here, and thank you very much, Sushma.
Thank you.
But before we end, Aarti, why don't we conclude this with a Bhairavi from you?
With a Bhairavi? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's technically, actually in Hindustani concerts.
Okay. Yeah, that's true.
They always end with a kind of, you know, with a Bhairavi. So let's end with a Bhairavi from you.
Okay.
But a Carnatic Bhairavi, not a Hindustani.
Needless to say.
Chintayama kandamulakandam Chintayama kandamulakandam Chintayama kandamulakandam Cheta Shri Soma Skandam Cheta Shri Soma Skandam Cheta Shri Somaya Skaldam
Nice. My favorite composer's Panchabhuta Kriti. That wouldn't be a better gift for me. Yeah, wonderful.
Oh, nice. That's special. Yeah.
That's beautiful. I mean, I listened to T.M. Krishna's Panchabhuta Kriti.
It was a song that was always daunted by, and I went back to Padma.
There was one point when I used to listen to that recording almost every day.
Beautiful Kriti. Yes.
That entire
All the Panchabhuta. Yes. So I remember I was in Singapore and I was in 9th grade, if I'm not wrong, 9th grade, so like 2012. I was so daunted by this ragam because I was, at that point in time, I couldn't differentiate between Todi and Bhairavi. I think all of us have been through that. Maybe not. I'm just speaking for myself. But I just went to Padma Chandali and Mami when I went back to Chennai. I was like, Mami, I Bhairavi la edan kattukano because Kriti kattindada enak vandu ragam puriyum. That's what I told her, and she taught me Chintaya Makanda. And after that, it's been a journey of Balagopala, Sariavaramma, and Amba Kamakshi. Yeah, so it's absolutely been a wonderful journey, and each and every single ragam has its own special story.
Of course, yeah, definitely.
So Sushma,
Yes.
thank you so much
Yes.
for sparing the time. I know you've been very busy, and you two have been very busy as well. Nishant, we literally pulled him out of his
24-hour gap.
Yeah,
I know.
and he said you must come and do this for us. So it's been wonderful having you all here, and wish you all the very
Thank
best.
you.
on
Thank
your
you so
musical
much.
journey. Wish all the three of you.
Thank
all
you,
the
guys.
best.
Thanks.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
And I hope
Yeah.
you were, able to do as much justice to music as Sushma has done. And I hope this conversation will help students of SIFAS who are somewhere along this musical journey to be inspired to learn some more, to do some more, and learn how to juggle various facets of their life. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Sushma,
Thank you.
Nishant,
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
Aarti. It's been wonderful to have you all here.
Thank you.
Wish you all the very best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.